Hello everyone. So today we're going to look into chapter 7, factors of quadratic expressions. Now let's begin with the review exercise itself. So let's revise what we've learned in the smaller classes before we move on to the actual lesson itself. So in the review exercise we have a few questions which says write each of the following algebraic expression as a product of its factors, or basically factorize the following. So when we have two terms like this, what we need to do when they say factorize, the first thing that should come into our mind is to take the common factor out. So for example, if we look at this a part, 3x plus 12, we need to figure out, is there anything common? So if you look at it, there is no algebraic term, there is no x in both, so we can't take x out, but we know that 3 times something gives us 12. So 3 times what gives us 12 is the question that comes up. So 3 times 4 gives us 12. So we can say that we're taking 3 out, and when we take the 3 out, we are left with 1x. So we can avoid the 1, we don't have to write the 1, we can leave it as x, plus 3 times what number gives you 12. So 3 times 4 gives you 12, so we can write it as 4. So the answer would be 3 bracket x plus 4. Now let me look at another example just to give you an understanding. Let's look at the e part where we have p squared q minus pq. So if you look at it, p is common to both, q is common to both. So we can take pq out of it. So when we take pq out of the first value there, p squared q, we have 1p remaining. So we write it as p minus, now we've taken the entire pq out, so we can't put a 0 there, because if I put a 0, when you multiply to get the answer, pq multiplied by 0 would give you 0, so there's nothing there. So instead I need to put that as 1 to show that pq multiplied by 1 would give me a pq itself. So another important thing to look into when you work with factorizing is the plus and minus, or the directed numbers that we learned previously. So be mindful about that. We'll do a few more questions and you maybe get a better understanding of around that. So in the B part we have, let's take the G question. So a squared minus 2ab minus 5a plus 10b. So we are going to take it, there are 4 terms, we are going to take 2. So if you look at a squared minus 2ab, we have a as a common factor. So I'm going to take a out. So what is remaining? A minus, now 2b. Because we've taken the a out, we are only left with 2b. Now in the next one we have minus 5a plus 10b. So if I'm taking minus 5 out, because we know that 5 times 2 gives me 10. So I'm taking minus 5 out. So now I do not have to put another minus here, because if I do that, when I multiply a negative 5 by a negative, I would get a positive. But I do not want a positive, I want a negative 5a. So I'll leave it as a itself. And in the next part here, I need a plus 10b. So to get that plus, if I put this as plus and then I write down 5 times 2b is 10b. Now you might see that one is a minus 2b and a plus 2b, which is not possible. That's one point to figure out that you've made a mistake. The second point that you can look into is a negative 5 multiplied by a positive 2b would give you a negative 10b, which is also not possible because we need a positive 10b. So those 2 clues show us that we've gone wrong somewhere, and this has to be a negative 2b, because negative 5 multiplied by negative 2b gives us a positive 10b. So that is how we get this as a minus 2b. So now we close the brackets. Now if you look at both of them, you see that a minus 2b is common to both as well. So one bracket would be a minus 2b and the other bracket would be a minus 5. So there we go. We've got the answers. We've factorized it and got our final answer there. So this is usually how we work with factorizing itself. Let's clear this and move to the next part. So defining trinomial quadratic expressions. So we're going to learn about quadratic expressions and trinomial quadratic expressions, where in this case the expression itself would be in the format ax squared plus bx plus c. So that's one of the major things that we need to remember. It's going to be ax squared. So I'll put this crowbar to show that it's a power ax squared plus bx plus c. When I put plus bx plus c, that does not mean that our questions are all going to be positive. They're going to be negatives as well, but this is just the format that we have the trinomial quadratic expressions in. Now, how exactly does this happen? Like for example, if you have 2 brackets, you can simplify them and put them as trinomial expressions. So we will look into this when we look at the examples itself and how we form. So for example, you have this question, a squared minus 8a plus 12. Now you need to factorize it, and so when I say factorize, you need to basically put them into two brackets. Now how do I put them into two brackets? Because I can't see anything in common. Now there are only three terms. There are no four terms for me to take the common factor out from, like, pair them and take the common factor out. So there are three terms and nothing is common, because if you look at the first part, you have a that is common, but it's not common with this. And if you take the second and the third, you see that you can take 4 out, but that's not with the first one. So there's a problem there. Now we need to figure out, okay, what am I to do here? So you look at the number here, the 12, which is basically the C. So you look at the C and C, you find the factors of C. Now what are the factors of C? 12. So if I talk about 12, I can say that 12 times 1 is 12. And then I can also say, if I want to see there, that 2 times 6 is 12. And next I can get 12 by saying that 3 times 4 is 12. So these are the factors of 12. Now I need to pick one of these where if I add or subtract, it has to give me a negative 8. Now the question here is a negative 8a, the second term, or basically the B term there. So it has to give me a negative 8. Now what would give me a negative 8? Now if I look at this part, if I add or subtract 12 and 1, 12 plus 1 is 13, 12 minus 1 is 11. So I can just cut it off. I know this is out of my question, this is not going to come in. So I'm just going to put that as a cut, that's not there. Now if I look at the second one, 2 plus 6 is 8 and 6 minus 2 is giving me 4. So this has a slight possibility, so I'm going to leave it there. And if I look at this one, 3 plus 4 is 7 and 3 minus 4 is 1. So I know that's not there in my question. I can't, because I need a 7, and I need an 8 but not a 7. So this is also out of it. So now we are left with 2 and 6. But there's another catch there. When you multiply, you have to get plus 12. But when you add or subtract, based on the question, you should get a negative 8, or the sum should be a negative 8 there. So now we need to figure out, because if I add plus 2 plus 6, my answer would be a plus 8, not a negative 8. So how do I get that? So if you look at this, I can write this as negative 2 times a negative 6. Because when I multiply a negative by a negative, it gives me a positive. So I will actually get plus 12 when this is solved. At the same time, if I am finding the sum of them, negative 2, let me just put them in brackets to get a clearer picture. When I am finding the sum of negative 2 and negative 6, we said in directed numbers that when you have the same sign, you add them, put the same sign. So because of that, I get the answer, a negative 8. So this actually satisfies both my problems there. When I multiply them, I'm getting a positive 12. When I add them, I'm getting a negative 8. So both the conditions are satisfied. There is a tick for both. So hence, we know that we can take negative 2 and negative 6. So now what happens? So a squared minus 8a. I'm going to replace this minus, so I'm going to put the square just like that. So I'm going to replace the negative 8a with the numbers that we just got. That is negative 2 and negative 6. So I'm going to put that as negative 2a, negative 6a, and plus 12 will remain as it is. So now we've found the equation, or found the expression that was there previously with 4 terms. So basically in the first 2 terms, like, we pair them. So a squared minus 2a, we know that a is common. Let's remember that that is not a2, instead that is a squared. So just to make things clear, I'll just put this crowbar to show that it's a squared, which is a times a. So I've taken 1a out, I'm left with 1a, and from negative 2a, I've taken a out, so I'm left with negative 2. And now moving to the next part, I've taken negative 6 out, and this time too we are very careful with the digits, with the units, or with the negatives and the positives as well. So I've taken negative 6 out, so I'm left with a. I need a positive 12, so minus 6, negative 6, negative 2 would give me a positive 12. So now one bracket would be a minus 2 and the other would be a minus 6. So there we go with the factorization. This might be a little tricky in the beginning stages, but I'm definitely sure once you get the hang of it, this is going to be pretty easy as well, just like how all the other questions go. Let me do one more example to give you a clearer understanding. I'll try to do it the same way, like show the breakdowns and give you a clear understanding itself. So let me just clear the screen first to make it more spacious and clearer there. So here we go. Let's go to the next example. We have x squared minus 7x minus 8. Our first step, write the factors of 8. So we have 8 over here. What are the factors of 8? Now remember, we need a negative 8, so I'm going to write it initially itself. To get a negative 8, when you're multiplying, one should be plus and the other one should be minus, because that's how you can get a negative 8. So we need to remember that one has to be a plus and the other has to be a minus. So with that, let's write the factors of 8 itself. So 8, we can get 1 times 8, 2 times 4, and it has nothing else, because once again 3 times nothing, 4 times 2. So that's basically it that we can get. Now when I find the sum of it, I should get negative 7. So 2 and 4, you know that when you add them you get 6, and when you subtract you get 2. So they're out of the question. So we are left with 1 and 8. Now the problem that comes in is you can either have plus 1 times minus 8, or you can have minus 1 times plus 8. It can be either way, because both of these would give me the answer of negative 8. Both of them give me the answer negative 8. But now when I find the sum of them, I need to get a negative 7. So I'll just change the color there. Okay, I think that whole thing, the color changed, but yeah. So if I need to find negative plus 1 and negative 8, if I find the sum of it, two different signs, we subtract and put the higher value sign. So when you find the sum of this, this is going to be a negative 7, because you subtract and put the higher value sign. So the higher value is 8 and you have negative 7, and over here it's 8, so the sign for that is plus 8. So because of that, the answer would be a plus 7. Now we need to choose out of these two which one would go best. So best, what would go is, we needed a minus 7x. So basically this is what we would go with. Alright, so now let's see what is our next step. We're going to replace the negative 7x with what we just got over here. So if I'm going to write that down, it's going to be x squared minus 7x minus 8. Let me just write that down, minus 7x and minus 8. So minus 7x is going to be replaced with minus 8x, or you can put either way, it doesn't make a big difference there. You can put it as plus 1x. So I'm going to write it as just 1, or just plus x, not 1x, because we usually don't write the 1 there. And that's minus 8x minus 8. So let's see how we're going to pair this up. So we have to put them in pairs. Now when you pair them, this is going to be one pair and this is the other. So x squared plus x, what's the common factor there? X is the common factor. We take x out. We're left with x in the first part, but in the second part we took the entire x out, so we're left with just 1 there and nothing else. So x plus 1 minus 8x and minus 8. Minus 8 is the common factor there. So when we take minus 8 out, we're left with x, and remember we've taken minus 8 out, so we're left with plus 1 now. Because if you look at this, a minus 8 multiplied by plus 1 would give you minus 8. If I put this as minus, I would get minus 8 multiplied by minus 1, which is plus 8, which is incorrect. So that is why we can put this as x plus 1. So one bracket would be x plus 1 and the other would be x minus 8. So that is the final answer of doing this part. And there's another technique that you can use when it comes to this type of questions, but remember this is easier to use mostly when you have x squared, like there's no coefficient of x. That's when this is easy. That is, you just put 2 crosses there and you try to write whatever you have. You have it in x, so you write x. So you write x here and let me put that line again. I think we've, okay, and we write the x here. And if you look at this, we have 8, so we need to figure out, we have negative 8, so we have, when we add them, we have to get 7, so we know that it's 8 and 1, so I'm going to put that 8 and 1 here. Now we need to figure out what the signs would be. So like I told you, when you multiply, you have to get negative 8, and when you add or subtract, you have, when you find the sum, you have to get negative 7. So for that, to get negative 7, I know that this has to be a negative 8 and this has to be a positive 1, because negative 8 and positive 1 would give me negative 7, and negative 8 multiplied by positive 1 would give me a negative 8. So both these conditions are met. So that is another way. So this is one bracket, x minus 8. This is like the shortcut method that you can use, but I would say because this is the beginning stage and you're just getting used to it, it's better to go with the long method. But once you get the hang of what you're doing, you can use the shortcut method even for your exams, unless they have given only this, like if it's a 2-mark question, then definitely show your methods, show how you got the answer. But if it is in between some other questions, then it's all right, you can use the shortcut method and get your answer. So let's clear the screen and move to the next parts itself, what we have there. So we have an example given where they have a negative x squared. So this way, here they've left the x there and they've taken the common factors out, only the x, and left minus x within the brackets, because when you see minus x plus 2, it's basically plus 2 minus x. You can write it vice versa, there's no problem with that. So that's what they've done over here. Or they have in this case, they've changed the entire the way it's written. It's 6 minus x squared, and then they've solved it out there. So it's pretty much the same thing, and here they've spoken about the accuracy of the factors of trinomial quadratic expressions. So if you want to figure out whether your answer is correct, you can multiply both of them and check if you've got the same answer. So like here they've got x squared plus 3x minus 40. The brackets said x plus 8, x minus 5. So if I want to check whether my answer is correct, I can multiply x by x, and if I get x squared, and next I can multiply x by negative 5, that's minus 5x, and I can multiply it by x and I get 8x, and plus 8 minus 5 would give me minus 40. So if I simplify this, minus 5x plus 8x, two different signs, we subtract and put the higher value sign, that's plus 3x. So we know we have x squared plus 3x and negative 40. That's the question itself. So if you get the question itself, you've got the correct answer. So this is the way we recheck. Like I told you previously, when we say rechecking, that's not looking, okay, have I answered all the question? That's not what we mean by rechecking. This is what is meant by rechecking. Check whether you get the question back again. If you do, then you're on the right track. If you don't, then there is a problem with it. So exercise 7.1 is basically like here they have the products and the sum that you need to find, and here you have a few questions where you need to factorize them. So that is like pretty much mostly in this lesson. If you understand the first part itself, I think the next few parts are going to be easier. So 7.2, the factors of trinomial quadratic expressions described further. Now in the previous questions that we did, we had the coefficient of x squared. Now when I say coefficient, that is the number or the digit with x squared was 1 always. We had 1, 1, 1. There was nothing else. But now in these examples or these questions onwards, we will have another, we will really have a value there with 2, 3, 4, 5, anything. So for example, here we have 3x squared plus 14x plus 15. Now when you get a question like this, the first step I would suggest you to do is see if you can divide all three terms, the 3, the 14 and the 15, by any number and get a simplified version of it. But in this case, we really can't, because 3, 14 and 15, then there's nothing. They're not divisible by anything. Not 14 is divisible by 2, but 3 and 15 aren't. 3 and 15 are divisible by 3, but 14 isn't. So we really don't have anything to divide it by. So in that case, we move to step 2, the second step. The second step is to multiply the first term by the third term. Okay. So 3 times 15. Now when I say first term, third term, that does not mean, they can confuse you. They can give the 14x first and give a different, they can rearrange the expression itself. But what I mean by the first and the third in this case is the a and the c. that is the coefficient of x squared and the value that we had alone. Okay, so 3 times 15, so 3x squared multiplied by 15 is 45x squared. So now we have 45x squared, and we need to find the factors of 45x squared in this case. Now, what are the factors of 45? And now we don't really have to list down all the factors, because we know that when we add or subtract, you have to get the value of 15 there. Yes, sorry about that. I think we had a small glitch there, but yeah. So we were on this question 3x squared and 15. So we multiplied 3 times 15 and we got 45x squared. So in that case, we really do not have to list down all the factors of 45 itself. Instead, what we can do is we can think that when I find the sum, which number would give me 14. So definitely we know that 45 times 1 is out of the question, because we won't even get something closer to it. So we can move to the next part, that whatever comes, like 5 times 9. Now if you look at 5 times 9, we know that it gives us the answer of 45 there. 5 times 9 equals 45. And on the other hand, when I find the sum of it, 5 and 9, 9 and 5 would give me a 14. So like a half of our problem is solved. We know what to do. And we know that we have plus in both cases, so actually we don't have any problem. We can just take plus 5x and plus 9x. So when we look at that, 3x squared plus 5x and plus 9x plus 15, over here we can see what is the common factor. Then from this point onwards, it's just the same how it was in the previous set of questions there. We need to find the common factor. So 3x squared plus 5x, common factor is x. We take the x out. We are left with 3x plus 5 there. So, and then when you look at this part, 9x plus 15, we know that we can't take the x out because 15 doesn't have an x, but we know that 3 is common to both, so we take 3 out. When we do that, we're left with 3x plus 5. Remember, most of the time, these two brackets over here should be the same. So then we know that we are on the right track in these type of questions. So one bracket is 3x plus 5 and the other is x plus 3. So that's how we solve this type of questions here. They've given us a few more examples for us to get a better understanding. And in this case here we have a fraction as well. So x squared plus 5 over 2x plus 1. Now how do we solve this is another question that comes up. So first thing first, what they've done is they've multiplied the entire thing by 2. So when you multiply by 2, or you can take the common factor out itself, you can take, here you can put the denominator. For example, here the denominator is 1 and here it's 1 as well. To make the denominator 2, you need to multiply x squared by 2. So that's what they've done, x squared by 2, so 2x squared. And 5 remains as it is, so it's 5x, and 1 times 2 is 2. So that's one thing that they've done there, and then they've taken the common factor, half, out. So when the half comes out, we leave the half for now. We're not going to look into it. And we do the usual way, the solving 2x squared plus 5x plus 2. We multiply 2 by 2, which is 4. Find the factors of 4, which is 4 and 1, because 4 plus 1 gives us 5. So we replace 5x with x plus 4x. And we take the common factor out, 2x squared plus x, the common factor is x. So we're left with 2x plus 1. And when we move to the next part, we have 4x plus 2, where the common factor is 2. So we're left with 2x plus 1. So one bracket is 2x plus 1 and the other is x plus 2. And then we include the half into it. So half comes as it is there. So that's one way, when we solve, when we have fractions itself. So under that also we have a few questions which you can practice, and if you do have any questions, you can comment or send an email and I'll get back to you with that. So moving to 7.3, which is factors of expressions which are in the form of the difference of two squares. Now once again, what is difference of two squares? When you look at this part, it's if anything is in the form a squared minus b squared. Once again, these are squared, not a2, b2. A squared minus b squared, that has to be written as a plus b, a minus b. We need to write them down as a plus b and a minus b. So what exactly, if you have x squared minus 4, now you might question, there's no squared for the 4, what do we do? But we know that 4 is a square number. So it can be written as x squared minus 2 squared. So which means we can write it as x plus 2, x minus 2. So this is somewhat easier to understand, I would say, because 4x, now if you look at the next example, 4x squared minus 9. 4x squared, 4 is a square number, so it's 2x squared basically, and 9 is 3. So we have 2x plus 3, 2x minus 3. Likewise, if you look at this one, 25a squared, it's 5a whole thing squared minus 4b whole thing squared. So one answer would be 5a minus 4b, and the other would be 5a plus 4b. So that's how you can work out with difference of two squares. And the last part over here is when you have factors of the difference of two squares described a bit further there, where you have algebraic expressions coming in. So here you have x plus 2 squared minus y squared. Now in this case, this entire thing would work as a. So a plus b. So x plus 2 plus y. That's one answer. And a minus b. So x plus 2 minus y. That's the second answer. Looking at the next example, now we have two expressions there, a minus 2, a plus 5. Now what was the first thing that we did? A plus b. So a minus 2. So one bracket is going to be a minus 2. Let's plus a plus 5. Now we can simplify this. So you can, a plus a is 2a, and 5 minus, or minus 2 plus 5 would give us a plus 3. So we can say that we have the answer 2a plus 3. That's one thing. Now the next thing is a minus 2 or a minus b, right? So a minus 2 subtract a plus 5. Now for this I'm going to use brackets because subtraction we need to change signs there. A minus, let me write that back again, a minus 2 minus a plus 5. Now remember, just because I put that minus, I'm not going to multiply or anything. I'm not, just because I put the brackets, I'm going to subtract it. So when I open this bracket, a minus a plus 5, what happens is the question, because a minus 2, it remains as it is, but minus times a is minus a, and minus times plus 5 is minus 5. So that's how this changes. Now the next part, a minus a is nothing, 0 there, so we can leave it off as it is. But minus 2 and minus 5 would give us minus 7, and the same sign, we add them for the same sign, so negative 7. So that's how we have one negative 7 and the other one 2a plus 3. That's how they've got this particular answer here. So that's pretty much it with this entire lesson itself. I hope it is clear to you, and if you do have any questions, please make sure that you comment your questions, or you can send an email to my email address over there. So thank you very much for joining in. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Have a nice day. Bye.